Cientistas estimam que 90% de todas as espécies de animais que alguma vez habitaram em nosso planeta se extinguiram. Mas, sem dúvidas, uma das extinções em massa mais intrigantes é a dos dinossauros, já que se trata de uma espécie de animais que nunca vimos e da qual só temos evidências fósseis. Os dinossauros eram um grupo de animais bem diversificado, sendo alguns relativamente pequenos e outros alcançavam tamanhos extraordinários. Um argentinossauro, por exemplo, media entre 30 e 39 metros de comprimento e pesava ao redor de 90 toneladas, ou seja, superava as dimensões e o peso de um Boeing 737. E é por isso que, ao tentar reconstruir o passado, uma das peças mais difíceis de decifrar em relação aos dinossauros é: que evento enorme haveria provocado o desaparecimento de milhares de espécies como essa?
Is it possible that we can know what a dinosaur looks like when we only have a few scattered bones like we have here? And the answer is pretty clear. We have a very good idea of how they look because in some places we find complete skeletons. And those complete skeletons enable us to reconstruct those particular dinosaurs in great detail. And the duckbills dinosaurs like we have here, the majority of the dinosaurs here are duck-billed dinosaurs. Those kind, we have 2 or 3 fossils that are called mummies because the entire skeleton is preserved along with the skin and the internal organs, although they are replaced. All of the dinosaurs still there, so we know what they look like. We don't know what every dinosaur looks like, and scientists still have to do a lot of reconstruction to get the bones in the right places, to put the right amount of flesh on them, and then put the right kind of skin. And oftentimes we have to review these as we get more information and then revise them. But we have a very good idea of what some of these dinosaurs looked like.
Scientists have become quite good at trying to piece together a reconstruction of a human based on skeletal remains that are found. And when we find skeletons, if we find the right side of a creature, we can figure out what the left side of that creature might have looked like. And so it's not necessary to find every single bone in order to put together a pretty good reconstruction, at least of the skeleton. Now, when you're looking at reconstructions of what color they were, there's some real interpretation that goes into that. When you look at the animations of their behavior, certainly there's an element of interpretation that goes along with that. But then we've been finding skin impressions that gives a picture of what the external surface of some of these dinosaurs look like. It's rare, but occasionally we'll find a mummified type of dinosaur that includes some of the soft tissue as well. Some of them even have stomach contents, which is pretty exciting. And so I think that as more and more discoveries are made, our accuracy is increasing.
Os primeiros registros de restos de dinossauros datam mais de 2.000 anos na região de Wucheng, Sichuan, China, onde foram encontrados os que naquela época foram descritos como ossos de um dragão. Inclusive gregos antigos e romanos registraram a descoberta de alguns fósseis de criaturas enormes que deram origem a diversas lendas sobre ogros e grifos. Vários séculos depois, em 1676, na Inglaterra, foi encontrado um fêmur que, ainda que a princípio acreditavam que pertencia a um gigante, mais adiante, em 1763, seria redefinido convertendo-se a partir de uma perspectiva científica no primeiro dinossauro descrito, mais tarde conhecido como megalossauro. Enquanto várias descobertas semelhantes seguiram isso, os dinossauros não receberam oficialmente seu nome como um grupo taxonômico até 1841, quando Richard Owen o chamou pela primeira vez de dinossauros, termo composto pelas palavras gregas deinos e sauros, que significam lagarto terrível. Mas a ciência avançou muito desde então. Novas descobertas surgem dia após dia e as evidências, grandes e pequenas, continuam nos surpreendendo ao descobrir novas características dessas fascinantes criaturas.
Teeth are easier to find because they're hard. If you look at your own bone, a dog will take a bite out of it. Nothing happens to the dog teeth, but it will poke a hole through your bone because the bones themselves have lots of open spaces in the bone. Teeth are covered with enamel, and then they have another kind of mineral underneath called dentine. So just like humans or whatever animal that has that, they're very hard. And so the skull may completely disintegrate, but the teeth will still survive. So we'll end up with more teeth than bones. Here's the granddaddy of them all. This is one tooth from T-Rex, Tyrannosaurus rex. That much is the enamel-covered tooth, and that much is root. So this is probably going to be an upper tooth. This one is not quite as narrow and blade-like as the Nanotyrannus. This guy could crush bones as well. So he's going to be doing more like a hyena does today. A hyena will crush bone and eat the whole thing. They have 50 of these in their skull. Tyrannosaurus rex, the boss of the meat eaters.
This is a jaw from an adult duck-billed dinosaur. You can see it had quite a large bite, and you can see how many teeth it must have had in the jaw. This is the lower jaw, the dentary of a duck-billed dinosaur. They had one of the most extensive and complex tooth arrangements of any animal. I'll show you a jaw that still has the teeth in it, although it's much smaller from a younger individual. And here you can see most of the teeth are preserved. They are 3 teeth high, and they are 3 teeth deep across here, 3 teeth there, and then 30 teeth long. So just in this side of the jaw, there are about 300 teeth, and then the other side of the jaw, and then the upper 2 jaws. So you're looking at about 1,000 teeth in the mouth, more or less, even in the small dinosaur. And what's interesting to me is the bite is down along the edge of the teeth. So you see it's like 2 scissors coming together. It would have been cutting the food, and then the food would have accumulated out here in the cheek. So it must have had broad cheeks, because the food then would be caught in the cheeks, and then it would have been swallowed subsequently.
You have different kinds of plant eaters that had ever-growing teeth or continuous tooth replacement. The duck-billed have a whole battery of teeth, a whole bunch of them all together, so that each individual tooth may be fairly narrow, but there may be 6 or 8 across, and then they wear down flat like a horse's tooth. So you end up with functionally a horse-type tooth, but it's made in a very different way. The Triceratops have much bigger teeth than than the duckbills. Again, showing that the food that they were eating was different than the duckbill, and certainly different than the long necks, the sauropods, which almost have a straining-like set of teeth, at least in the front. So there's a great deal of diversity, again, in the dinosaurs that mimics the diversity in mammals that are in the Cenozoic and living where we are today.
Frágeis fósseis que nos contam uma história de vigor e beleza. Restos enterrados por muito tempo que nos surpreendem com prodígios da engenharia natural, iguais ou ainda mais complexos que os que nos maravilham na atualidade. Será que ao estudar os fósseis à luz do que já conhecemos, seremos capazes de decifrar mais pistas sobre a enigmática vida destes seres do passado?
In the mammal world, we have a vast variety of different animals that eat different things and have to have special equipment in order to eat them. You won't find a jaguar chewing on a mango leaf. They don't have the dental battery to process it. They're not going to be out grazing with the horses. Conversely, the horse has got ever-growing teeth, long teeth, that flatten off because the grass has lots of silica in it, and it wears the teeth down fast. So they need long teeth that can wear down throughout their life. So you can look at the horse, not know what first time you ever saw one, but just look at his teeth and say what he was doing for a living. And the same thing's true in the dinosaur world.
Normalmente os dinossauros, eles eram carnívoros ou herbívoros. O grande grupo era herbívoro. E a gente consegue perceber isso pela forma dos dentes. Os dinossauros carnívoros, eles têm dentes muito grandes, às vezes em forma de uma faca, e o dente, ele é serrilhado, ele tem uma serrinha muito fina envolvendo o dente, próprio para cortar realmente a carne, né? Já os dinossauros herbívoros já têm uma dentição completamente diferente. Os dentes são mais ou menos iguais, na forma de lanças de ponta de setas, próprio para você macerar ou amassar vegetais, já que eles comiam massas de vegetais muito, muito grandes. Alguns destes dinossauros, inclusive, eles engoliam seixos, fragmentos de rocha, que nós chamamos de gastrólitos, para ajudar na digestão. Eles comiam aqueles vegetais, comiam muita coisa, e aquelas pedras, aqueles seixos, eles se movimentavam e ajudavam na digestão dos alimentos, né? Era uma maneira deles digerirem a grande quantidade de alimento que eles usavam. Inclusive, nesses animais, os ossos da cintura, um dos ossos é rebatido para trás para deixar mais um espaço vazio dentro para caber a grande quantidade de massa vegetal que eles comiam.
One of the other interesting findings when it's fossilized, and it wouldn't be very nice if it wasn't fossilized, is when we find dung. And believe it or not, we actually do find coprolites. Coprolites are fossilized dung. Now this happens to be a coprolite from a mammal, but can you imagine how large a dinosaur coprolite might be? Especially if it was a coprolite from T-Rex. Another interesting piece of evidence that shows us again that these creatures are real. They ate food, they digested their food, and we have the evidence of what kind of food they ate in their teeth. But we also find evidence sometimes, we find stomach contents, rarely, but then we also find the coprolites. So we're seeing evidence of many different aspects of dinosaur life that really shows that these were real creatures. Yes, they've gone extinct, but they have left behind bits and pieces of evidence that show how real they truly were.
Pequenas peças de um quebra-cabeças interminável de dados e interpretações que ajudam a ciência a compreender, através dos fósseis, o mundo dos dinossauros. trabalho progressivo que cativa nossa curiosidade ao nos revelar em fragmentos aparentemente insignificantes aspectos fundamentais sobre a vida dessas criaturas extintas há tanto tempo atrás.
My work has mainly been in dinosaur taphonomy, which is the study of what happens to them from the moment they die until we find them as a fossil. So one of the things we've been looking at a lot is tooth marks, and we'll find a bone that has a big scratch on it. It's like, okay, what is that? You know, it could be that that is a tooth mark, you know, maybe something bit it. It could also be that maybe this bone was rolling around and some kind of a rock cut it, or another bone ran into it, made a mark. It could be that an animal stepped on it and made that mark. And so there's a lot of different possibilities. But one of the really interesting things about dinosaur teeth, for theropods, the meat-eating dinosaurs, they have typically serrated edges on them. So you might think about like a serrated knife, like you use to cut bread. These teeth, if they're cutting straight along, it'll just leave a simple groove. But if that tooth were turned on its side, as the animal, like if it turned its head, those little tiny serrations would leave their own individual grooves. And so you could actually measure the distance between those serrations, and you can get an idea of what kind of a tooth was biting it, and that can tell you what species was biting another species. So we will find dinosaur bones with tooth marks from other dinosaurs on them, and we can be confident that these are tooth marks from dinosaurs. And so you're looking at something that would have happened in the past, where an animal bit another animal. And since we can see that in the present, and we can see that in the past, it makes sense that these were once living animals that were interacting with each other. We also find their footprints and all kinds of things like that, like you would expect if they were real animals.
Existem também outras evidências que os restos ou os fósseis eles podem nos mostrar. Por exemplo, eles nos podem nos falar sobre as doenças. Examinando às vezes os ossos pela sua morfologia, é possível inferir algumas doenças. Alguns ossos apresentam deformações, às vezes nas extremidades, ou mesmo em outros locais, que vocês estão associados à degeneração do ósseo, algumas doenças associadas com a parte esquelética do osso. Essas deformações aparecem nos ossos, portanto, se você fizer um estudo comparativo, né, desses ossos com outros ossos, e mesmo com ossos de animais de hoje, você consegue detectar doenças próprias do sistema ósseo. Se você fizer, às vezes, cortes, estudar o interior dos ossos, as células ósseas, no caso, se os ossos não estiverem muito mineralizados, você conseguir resgatar alguma coisa, você consegue perceber algumas degenerações nos tecidos ósseos que estão associados, por exemplo, a deficiências em cálcio, que pode ser uma deficiência na alimentação ou um tipo de doença degenerativa, mas que está presente nos ossos porque os ossos são muito ricos em cálcio. E você consegue detectar deficiência de cálcio examinando a textura do osso. Portanto, você consegue inferir como é que causas poderiam no seu dia a dia desses animais poderiam resultar na deficiência daqueles ossos e gerar aquele tipo de doença.
One of the other things that I find very fascinating are when we actually are fortunate enough to find a skin impression, because reptiles have scales, and sometimes we will find the impression of scales that gives you an idea of how big the scales were of that particular dinosaur. One of the other fascinating things about dinosaurs is some of the armored dinosaurs that have these bony plates as a part of their skin. I mean, they don't look like anything that we have today. It would have been probably kind of scary to come across something like that. And yet we do find those evidences. Another kind of evidence is as you look at the communities in which the dinosaurs lived, and you look at evidences of baby dinosaurs hatching from eggs, and you see the groups of dinosaurs that we see tracks of creatures that move together. These are amazing, amazing creatures. The diversity and the complexity really is very comparable to the diversity and complexity that we see in our world today. Different creatures, these are all reptiles. But in the world of mammals, and we certainly have some reptiles today, we also see a similar amazing diversity and complexity.
a conservação de numerosos organismos, seus restos e a evidência de suas atividades, como, por exemplo, suas pegadas ou galerias, é muito difícil de explicar mediante os processos que operam na atualidade. Particularmente quando consideramos a natureza dos depósitos fossilíferos como este. Isto se deve a que muitas das características dos fósseis em si apoiam eventos catastróficos ou processos de sepultamento rápido.
Sometimes scientists have found eggs, large eggs, and they try to figure out who could have laid those eggs. And so, well, it's too big for anything that we can think of, so then they thought, well, dinosaurs might have laid those eggs, and so it has become believed that dinosaurs laid those eggs. Then a scientist found some eggs that still had the remains of the embryos in them. And they opened them up, and sure enough, dinosaur embryos in the eggs. Well, now, how can you doubt that? You know, obviously it's dinosaurs laying those eggs, and some of them are found even arranged in patterns that make it look like a nest. Kind of not really like a bird's nest, because birds generally don't lay eggs in a pattern, but as you could compare it to that, you know, like in a circle with the ends pointing out. And wow, it's just interesting. There's quite a few places where eggshells are found. But an eggshell is not a nest necessarily. When you find the eggs in patterns, in a confined area, maybe a little mud structure around it, that looks like a nest. But when you find crushed eggshells mixed with sediment, then you need to look at the sediment.
I worked on dinosaur eggs in Argentina. I didn't do the work on the eggs, my colleague did the work on the eggs. I was trying to find nests. I am a big proponent of nests. And yet every time I go to a place where people are saying that we have nests here, I usually am disappointed because it's not actually a nest. In Argentina, I was very excited. I was just certain we must have had nests, and yet as we worked in the sediments and through the sediments, we began to realize that this material had been transported. Our eggs were in cross-bedded sands, and we could determine direction of flow and all kinds of things like that. So we didn't have nests there. And yet people would say, oh, look, we found like 7 eggs right in this area. Obviously, this is a nest. No, it's not. It's 3-dimensionally in the sediments, and it's in cross-bedded sand. There's no way. It's not disturbed in any way. There's no reason to think that an egg that has cross-beds below it, against it, above it, wasn't transported. The data itself is saying, what do you think? Well, I think they were transported. I do not think that they're a nest in those kinds of deposits. The region itself, most likely there was flooding. Now this is just telling the story. This isn't the data, but it is most likely that the region where the nesting was going on was flooded and eroded, and the eggs, because they're now petrified, we're not certain that the eggshell material was actually hard. It may have been leathery. It may have rolled very nicely in the sands without a problem, even coarser grain material. We don't know. We do know that it is egg material. Now, how do we know that? Well, for one thing, when you look at all kinds of eggs, you'll find that egg shell has 3 layers to it, and so do the dinosaur eggshells. They're consistent with eggs laid by whatever. 3 layers. And it's very clear, very distinctive. You do a little microscope work, it's right there looking at you saying, okay, there's 3 layers. Am I egg or not? Now, you're an egg of what? Not finding any embryos in our eggs, we had to suggest we didn't have to, but what we suggested was these might be the eggs of a particular kind of dinosaur that was in the region. Well, perhaps not. You know, we have a lot of Cretaceous birds. Some of them are pretty good size. How do we know it's not from some other organism? We can't say for certain, but we can say this is the most likely region because this is the dominant animal in this area that would be laying eggs. And we have bones not directly associated with the egg material, but either above or below it.
Different kinds of dinosaurs have different structures of the crystals that make up the shell itself. Dinosaurs, unlike alligators and crocodiles, lay an egg with a hard shell, like a bird does. Alligators and crocodiles, it's more leathery, and there aren't the real crystals. But the ones from Argentina, the titanosaurs, have a very unique eggshell structure. The eggshell may be a centimeter thick. And when you're that thick and that big, you got a lot of weight pushing down on that egg. And so the crystals are in place kind of like a cone, like an ice cream cone, that's wider at the top and narrower at the bottom. And so if you put pressure on it, it compresses those cones together and makes it fit even tighter. The meat-eating dinosaurs have eggshells more like a rhea, a ratite bird, an Argentinian ratite, that are actually in layers. We cannot tell about how many pores there are for oxygen and stuff to get through. It tells us something about the physiology of the developing embryo, about maybe how much moisture there was. You can't have too many pores if you're underwater. And so there's a lot of things like that, and the nest structure that can tell us something about the behavior of dinosaurs. Not only are they real, they did stuff.
Seres de carne e osso. Animais que, assim como os que conhecemos na atualidade, nasciam, cresciam, comiam, se acaçalavam e, inclusive, existem evidências de que podiam comunicar-se entre si. Muitos deles viviam em comunidades, se relacionavam, adoeciam e morriam. Nada fora do comum para uma criatura que habitava sobre a face da terra. Nada, exceto talvez que muitos anos depois a única forma que existe de reconhecê-la é estudando o que restou após sua extinção.